So you probably applied to a program recently and you got an interview and you realize that the interview is MMI style. You're probably wondering what to expect. So in my graduate program, we host MMI style interviews. So I'm going to give you the perspective of what we're looking for in students during our interview process. And of course, MMI style could vary from program to program, from university and college to another university and college. So take my perspectives in this podcast with a grain of salt. It might not be applicable to the program that you're hoping for, but in my particular program, we hosted MMI style. We invite a slate of candidates in the morning and the afternoon, and they stay for 3-4 hours. And the applicants will stay around for a few hours, spending a bit of time with each of our interview panel member. And depending on the day you're requested to come in for the interview, who's on the interview panel that day will change, but the deliberation process is still the same. So in each of our station, the interview panel member will focus on a different aspect. So they will focus on a particular question. So one station may be just about, tell me about yourself, who you are, what are you interested in, why do you want to come to your grad program. Another station may ask you more specific about what are your interests. So this faculty member might specifically ask you, like, these are some projects that could potentially be career pathways, what are your thoughts on this, just so they can kind of assess out how passionate you are about the field, and also how this station also kind of then shows the panel member what is your thinking process and how ready you are. A lot of times this is also a good station to kind of assess how much research and preparation the student did before coming into the interview, and also in particular before deciding to apply for a grad program. It's not uncommon for us to get students who just applied on a whim and have no appreciation or understanding of how the field works. So this is a good station to assess that. And then finally, you may get a bunch of other question-related sessions in between. But finally, our program also asks you to prepare and advance a presentation on a topic of your choice. And you're asked to walk in with slides and present it to a faculty member. And this faculty member will just sit there and listen to your presentation. And then at the end, they'll ask you questions. And the faculty member will often ask you questions that is the opposite of your perspectives in the presentation. So for example, if you say, I think apples is the greatest fruit on earth, the faculty member will play the role of a devil's advocate and say, well, I actually think apples are the worst fruit on the earth, and here's why I think that. What are your opinions on my arguments? So this station is really there to kind of assess how well of a communicator you are. First off, how do you deal with opposing perspectives? Because in my particular field, you'll need a thick skin to succeed. So we want to kind of assess how ready the student is, of course. And then finally, it's also a good way to kind of see how strong the applicant can be in terms of their own arguments, whether or not they're very stubborn, or do they take more of a middle ground, or do they try to argue it out and try to see both sides of the argument with your faculty member. I think a lot of students really show who they really are and their true personalities. And this station is really good to see how confident of an applicant this student is. And then finally, in the MMI interview process, as much as each station focuses on a particular topic or subject or question, the whole MMI interview process is really about also getting to know the student's personality. During the deliberation process, at the end of each, morning session or afternoon session, all the faculty members that are there for interviews that day will come together and say, applicant 1, I think should be a high admit because of these reasons, and the other faculty members will discuss and say if whether or not they agree or disagree for whatever reasons, and they'll decide and they'll kind of place those applicants into the for yes piles, for no piles, and the maybe piles. And also, as there's only for one program, when we look at these applicants, we put them in 3 main piles: yes, no's, and maybe. So the majority of our applicants end up in the maybe and no pile. So even if you do think you bombed a particular station, that's okay, because when we look at the number of applicants we have, oftentimes we don't have enough yes applicants. So we'll start looking at, out of the maybes, who is our highest top ranking ones, and we'll start, to pull a student from that pile. So even if you did bomb a particular station, don't fret, because I think you still have a good shot at it. And second of all, even if you don't think the answers you gave were particularly great, or if you think the faculty member really drilled on you when it came to the presentation aspect, I think in the MMI process interview, we do a lot of different things to kind of assess your personality as well and to see where you are. Obviously, if you're giving the wrong answers, that's okay, because for the most part, people come into the program to learn. So it's not about how accurate you are in your content, and we're not asking all of our students to come in as content expertise, because that's not what we intend students to come into the program for. Like, there's no reason to come into a program if you're already an expert in something. So in the case of my grad program, we set up the MMI process really to kind of assess the student's personality, whether or not we think you'll kind of fit in with the rest of the faculty and with the other grad students that we have in the program. And then second of all, to also assess what skills level are you coming in with. Obviously, I think all grad programs will prefer students who are strong communicators, have excellent analysis skills, and also can be able to not be too stubborn when it comes to their argument, and be able to see both sides of the story and kind of take a balance. I think if you're on the edge of the extreme approach, I think that's not very palatable for most people. So these are some of the things that my grad program looks at when we have the MMI interview process. Of course, how a program structures their MMI process will vary across from universities, and even within the same university will vary from program to program. So these are the perspectives for my university and for my particular program. So if you are going through the MMI process, I hope some of these tips will help and some of these perspectives will help, but definitely do take it with a grain of salt, because like I said, this process and what they're looking for from program to program will definitely vary. So good luck.